Welcome to RotoWire Fantasy Football Live Super Wildcard Weekend. The NFL's name for it, not mine, but that's what it is. And we're so excited. Playoffs are in the air. First of all, let's go through a few announcements. If you would like my 30 pages of wildcard playoff notes, I have game predictions, I have positional breakdowns, I have prop betting ideas, I have DFS plays, fantasy plays in there. It could be useful to some of you if you want that 30-page notes set. Just go to my X profile at Jim Coventry NFL, like and repost it, and then I will send you the link. Do that after the show. Also, if you want to see a playoff challenge cheat sheet that I did and an article behind that, you can get a free trial at RotoWire. No credit card need to go to rotowire.com/Jim. A couple more business points here. Every Monday through the Super Bowl, tune into this channel, 11 a.m. Eastern. Anthony Servino and myself will react over all the weekend's games, give you the breakdown. Tuesday shows, we'll do early previews for the next week's game, so you get the heads up and get ready for that. And then finally, these Friday shows, further previews, props, and DFS. Let's get down to business. And I appreciate you being here with me today. Thank you for hanging out with me. We all love football. Hopefully, we're ready for this big weekend. All right, we're going to go in chronological order of the games, starting out Browns versus Texans. I'll do the short form here. Breakdowns, Tuesday, but I'll give you enough here to show the key points that I'm highlighting in these games. So when the Texans have the ball, my biggest concern is that C.J. Stroud has been fantastic against zone defense this year. He's a bottom 5 quarterback against man. Cleveland has plays one of the highest man rates in the league. And I think we see the playoffs. And here's another point on a side point I'll make. In the playoffs, most teams do hyper-specific game planning. If they know you have an area of weakness, they will usually try to make you beat them with something else. And so I could see a world where Cleveland ramps up their man usage 60%, maybe in that range, and that could really make things tough for Stroud. Now, remember, when they lost Tank Dell forever ago, that was a big component of their offense. It was a lid-lifting part of that's not the only routes he ran, okay? But it really was a vertical element that helped stretch defenses. Now, Cleveland did have an injury. Denzel Ward at practice on Thursday hurt his knee, questionable. So it might help a little bit if he's out because he is a star corner, but their other top corners are very good as well. So they still should be able to hold up, especially, again, with obviously no Dell. That's going to make a big difference here. Also, Myles Garrett should be a week healthier. He got hurt about a month ago, and that week off last week is like 14 days, between his last game and now, maybe a little longer. I think it was a Thursday night game they played that week prior. So we're talking like 17 days. That's going to be a big deal here. And look for them to move him around. They might put him on, I can't think of the guy's first name, but Heck is the right tackle. I don't think they're going to mess with Laramie Tunsil. I think they're going to move Garrett over to that side and just cave that in down after down. And then you got Zadarius Smith, you got Delvin Tomlinson on the interior. Ogbo Okoronkwo may play. We don't know yet, but that would help them too. But this pass rush can be a real problem for a good Texans line. Now, the other side of the ball, Cleveland, hey, Joe Flacco gives, he takes away. We know he'll throw picks, he'll throw touchdowns. In every game except for the Jets game, they won easily. He throws 42 times a game. That has been a staple. And quick play action passes. Well, Houston, from what I see, is one of the worst teams in the league in defending play action. You get those linebackers compromised. The corners are very good, but they play zone. So it's basically they're not locking you down. I think they play 17% or 18% man coverage is one of the lower rates in the league. And so it's going to be Cooper winning against zone and Njoku winning against zone. We don't know what Elijah Moore's status is. He had that concussion where he went to the hospital a couple of weeks ago. And we know Tillman also had a concussion. We're going to see his status, though that'll probably come out later today. But if either of those guys play, Tillman actually will play some in the slot. Obviously, if Moore's there, it'll be more in the slot, repeating that on purpose. But there is capability to attack them in the slot. But regardless, I think they have enough with Cooper and Njoku. And you're going to see Jerome Ford using the screen game. He'll see 3 to 7 targets per game. And so I think altogether, that should give them some level of success. Of course, Flacco will make a mistake. He may make 2. But that said, I'm predicting the Browns win this one 23-16. I just think that Stroud against man has been enough of a problem. And I think this defense is going to be a little bit overwhelming. Now, for playing fantasy, the best fantasy plays, look, Amari Cooper had 265 and 2 touchdowns last time he played. He won't do that again. But even if he gets a third of that game, you're looking at almost 90 yards, right? I do think there's a great chance he goes over 100 yards here. He is the target king when Flacco airs it out. Jerome Ford's a good fantasy play in PPR. So if you're using him in like in a tournament, a DFS, the pass catches add up, and he could catch 5 passes here. I'm not saying he will, but he should catch at least 3, and he could catch 5. Some yardage to go with that. Reasonable plays. Look, David Njoku, he gets 8 to 14 targets a game. He may be a fantastic play, actually. But as long as there's enough left over from Cooper, the last time they played, I want to say Njoku went like 6 for 44, and he did score. So he was a very good play, and he may be an elite play here. So he could be elite, but he's at least reasonable. You definitely don't want to fade David Njoku. He's the number 2 in this offense. And again, with Flacco throwing 42 to 45 times, it's going to be there. So I probably should move Njoku into that elite category. But I didn't want to put too many Browns in there. And I think the game's going to be a little lower scoring than I like too. When I predicted the game, I may have already said this. I predict 23-16 Browns. So at that point, I don't see an offensive avalanche. And that's why I put Joe Flacco as a reasonable, hey, Anthony. And that's why I put Joe Flacco is a reasonable play. He'll throw his pick or two. Again, I think this is a playoff volume type game. It's going to be a little lower scoring than we might expect. I don't think the Browns blow the roof off on the scoreboard. Nico Collins is a reasonable play. Now, if Denzel Ward is out, he gets bumped up a little bit, but I still think with Stroud's issues against man, the big deal with Collins is they get him schemed so open in the zones, and he is able to take full advantage of that. So I think that's a huge thing that's not going to necessarily be here. Dalton Schultz put up numbers in the first meeting. They all came in garbage time. He did very little, and then they were getting blown out in that game in week 16. He's a reasonable play here. He should get some work here. Henry's in the house. I'm definitely going to bring up Khalil Shakir later. Excellent call on that. Yes. All right. And then CJ Stroud's a reasonable play. Again, he does struggle against man. I think he puts up floor numbers here, but I wouldn't make him a recommended fantasy play. He's not somebody I'd be like, oh yeah, we definitely got to go with CJ Stroud here. I think it's more of a floor game. I think you're looking at maybe 240 in the yards, maybe around there, a touchdown. It's a small chance he gets 2, 1. So he's a kind of a floor play. Wild card plays. Kareem Hunt's a wild card play. He gets about 10 carries a game. His yardage isn't good, but he's the goal line back. He typically gets the goal line work. And there's a world where he scores. And that makes him a live play in these fantasy contests if you need somebody that might score. But he's risky. He's very risky because his yards per carry is not what it was. Houston is excellent against the run. So there's that. And actually, I have a prop on him. I'll tell you that in a minute. And then if Elijah Moore is active, he's a wild card play, because he really is not Flacco's guy. We've seen it. The only game he was when Cooper got knocked out of a game, and then I think we saw him with like 12 targets. But it's Cooper, it's Njoku, and then it's kind of everybody else. But Elijah Moore's a wild card play because, the slot can be favorable against the Texans. If Moore is out and Cedric Tillman does play, remember he had a concussion, then he would kind of move in that wild card role. And the Devin Singletary is a wild card. Cleveland's run defense is very good, but they give up explosive run plays. And not that Singletary's an explosive runner, but it's a real boomer bust defense. And you can't sustain on them, the Browns defense as a runner, but you can hit big plays. So he's a wild card, because if he hits 2 of them, now all of a sudden it's not a bad fantasy day. Here are the props I'm looking for in this game. Amari Cooper over 73.5 yards. These numbers may change a bit. I grabbed them yesterday. These certainly could change as they get bet on. Remember, he had 265 in the first game. He's certainly not hitting that. But with the targets he gets and the amount Flacco throws, and the fact that I don't think there aren't going to be big adjustments coming from the Texans. They play zone. That's their game. And Cooper beats zone. Jerome Ford over 17.5 receiving yards. As I said earlier, he gets 3 to 7 targets a game. This is a defense you can attack with receivers out of the backfield, and Ford has been that guy. He could actually get that on 1 catch. Devin Singletary, longest rush over 16.5 yards. It's all because of the Browns. It seems like almost every game they play, the Browns give up 1 or 2 big runs, and Singletary is getting the volume. And because they don't play zone a lot, sometimes that leads toward them. The corners have their backs turned, and sometimes that leads to the running back getting that gashed run of a bit longer. And then the last one I like, it's always risky to bet an under. Kareem Hunt's longest rush under 8.5 yards. Houston has been a phenomenal run defense. Hunt no longer has that explosiveness that he had earlier in his career. And he's not a big play run guy. He's more of he gets a lot of his carries like in short yardage. I just don't see him getting a 9-yard run on this one. It's a risky bet, but those are the props I like. If we're betting this game, I have it going 23-16. The over and under is 44 in this game. So I do see this as an under game, not by a lot, but I do see it as an under. I do see it as the Browns -3. Now, if you're betting teasers, either side works. You would tease the Browns up to +3 or the Texans up to +9. I feel safer with the Browns side of that at +3 since I have them winning anyway. And if they're getting a field goal, even if they get nicked out at the last second, it could just be by a point or two. So that's probably where I would go if I was using a teaser leg. All right, Dolphins, Chiefs. Now, weather forecasts, they can change, but temperature would be surprising if it changed much. So again, we're looking at this game. Temperatures could be below zero. This could be the 5th time in NFL history that we've had a sub-zero base temperature in the playoffs. And the wind chill would certainly be well beyond that. There's a possibility of snow. Now we'll check the forecast, okay? Check the forecast Saturday morning, get it closer to kickoff, definitely find that out. But, again, when you're betting and you want to know about the weather, wait as late as possible to make those decisions. Here's my thoughts now. The Dolphins. We know that they love throwing to Tyreek Hill. We know they have a very good running game. Jalen Waddle should play here. Raheem Mostert should play here. I think it would be bad business to try to beat the Chiefs and Steve Spagnuolo's coaching through the air. And I think Tua is going to be even less effective trying to throw in super cold temperatures. I think this weather does Mike McDaniel a massive favor. He's a smart man. I think he realizes you don't want to pass in this weather. He has the trump card. Devon Achane. Raheem Mostert's expected to play. The offensive line is not great, but it's that Shanahan run system. It doesn't require a dominant line to run. The Chiefs are unable to stop good running games. They haven't given up many 100-yard games, but the efficiency they're giving out the running backs is significant. I believe that Mike McDaniel has no choice but to come in here saying, I am running the ball with my 2 great running backs. And I don't believe the Chiefs can sell out to stop them because of Tyreek Hill and Jalen Waddle's presence on the field. Because of that speed, they must respect it. I see a game where if McDaniel does as I think he has to do, you never know what a coach is going to do. But I could see them running it down the Chiefs' throats, and they're the 28th in pace of play. They take their time, and they drain clock between plays. This is a very good recipe for Miami on the road. You don't like the warm weather team going into the cold weather environment, but if you can run the ball, that's a different ballgame. Anthony, thank you. You put right now 4 degrees currently at kickoff in KC. Yes. And so it's not going to get much warmer. Again, check the forecast. It might change a little bit. It's not going to change drastically. It's going to be a super, super cold game. Now, on the other side of the ball for Kansas City, here are my concerns. First of all, Vic Fangio has coached against Mahomes. Remember, Fangio ran the Denver Broncos for a while. And Fangio did very well against Mahomes when Mahomes had the offense humming. Now, I understand the injuries in Miami are significant. Very, very significant. We know we don't have Bradley Chubb, who they lost a couple weeks ago in an ACL. We know Jalen Phillips got hurt on Black Friday. We know Jerome Baker, the inside linebackers out there, are shredded at edge and linebacker. There's not much left. What we saw from Vic Fangio against the Bills, because now you can't get pressure just rushing 4, all right? And that's what he likes to do. But we saw in that Bills game, Fangio is willing to dial up some blitzes, and he will do that. He's a very creative coach, and he needs to be. Now, here's the other thing. Typically, they don't use Jalen Ramsey to shadow. Typically, they keep him on the side of the zone. This is playoff football. I always say it's hyper-specific game planning. Fangio at least has to strongly consider taking Ramsey and either putting him on Rashee Rice or on Travis Kelce, whichever he thinks is more dangerous. Right now, maybe they're not worried about Kelce. And I think if Fangio does that, I think that really limits a limited passing game. Look, I know EPA numbers always have the Chiefs saying, oh, they're still a great offense. I watch the games every week. The Chiefs are not a good offense right now. Now, they can run Pacheco, but there's a caveat there. And he may do really well. But he's been banged up a lot this year, and he takes a lot of contact on. And he's not his body type is not one to hold it. Now, can he get through a game? Yes. But look, there's a possibility that he doesn't really grind this thing out for 4 quarters, where Miami has 2 backs. Big difference, right? I think Pacheco will be fine here. I think Pacheco's in great shape here, okay? But that said, I like the Miami running game a heck of a lot better than I like the Kansas City running game in this one. So now all that said, I think the best plays in this game, I'm going to go to it. I'm going to say Mostert and Achane are the best plays. I think Isaiah Pacheco has real upside, but I consider him a reasonable play. I think he's a very, very high floor, and he could have a ceiling game. So you could consider him there. I do consider both Rashee Rice and Tyreek Hill reasonable plays. They're going to get something. They're going to get targets. Tyreek might get some pitches. He might get some, little pop passes. They might not be throwing downfield, but Tyreek Hill will be a part of a pseudo running game, not like handoffs, but close to it, right? So there may be a lot of that for Tyreek Hill just to get the running game going and keep Tua from making those mistakes. Wild card plays in this game. These are very boom bust, very volatile. Travis Kelce, could he find the magic for a game? Yes, I'm not betting on it. So yeah, I could consider him a wild card. Patrick Mahomes is a wild card. He's been outside the top 12 fantasy quarterbacks since the second half of the season. So, and I don't see that changing here. Clyde Edwards-Helaire is a wild card because if it is a high volume running game, they may need to mix him in. Very much of a wild card there. The receiving game, he has been a factor as a receiver out of the back. They have some nice schemed up plays there for sure. Jalen Waddle is a wild card. He's supposed to play. He could make a big play. I'm not counting on it, but he's volatile. Would not have a lot of trust in him here. And then Tua as a player, he's a wild card player as well, because I just don't think there's going to be passing volume in this game. So he's not somebody I'm really trusting very much. Let me see. We got a couple comments here. Henry says Miami has to run to keep. Yes, 100% of that. They also, right, not just can they run on the Kansas City Chiefs, but it keeps their defense off the field, and it allows them to do a little bit more aggressive play calling when they are on the field. And Anthony McDaniel must give up some reverse action. Yes, 100%. Yes, they are going to utilize some jet motion a lot. And maybe Waddle doing that too. If they're not going to utilize the passing game, Waddle could be part of that equation as well. So this is going to be a very, very fun game from a tactical standpoint. The props, I did this yesterday. I still got to circle back to props today. There was nothing listed in terms of reasonable props. There were some things, it was like a bunch of fluff stuff. So, but I will bet the over on the yardage prop for Achane and Mostert, because they will be priced down. They won't be priced as if that's going to be the game plan. And I'm going to go with the narrative that McDaniel is going to have to see that's the only path. If we're wrong, then we're missing that one. Now, in terms of forecasting this game, look, I understand. Patrick Mahomes has been there. He's done that. But he's never played a playoff game, in this type of situation where they're not like heavy favorites in the first round, right? Well, they often have to buy in the first round, so there's not even that. I think Miami wins this game. I think Miami wins at 19-13. I think the running game is going to overwhelm the Chiefs. This game could go either way. It's a tough one to bet. But if you're betting a teaser leg with the added 6 points and play 3 to 5 different plays, then I'm definitely liking Miami teasing them. I add 6 points to their point spread. I think that one is a fabulous bet. I do like the under in this game. I have it scoring 32 points. I don't think we're going to see a lot of scoring here. And Anthony, just don't see how the passing props in general hit. No, exactly. And I'm waiting to see where they're priced. I'm waiting to see, because when they put them out, I'm waiting to see what Mahomes' yardage is, because it might be priced in low. And at that point, you get a little bit nervous. I don't see it either. Do not see it either. And if Miami shortens the game, there's that as well. And it's not like Mahomes is going to be like, oh, we're down in the fourth quarter, we're going to just engineer 2 80-yard drives. They haven't been that all year, right? All right. Steelers, Bills. So again, this game, we're looking at maybe snow. Check the forecast before the game. Okay. I always tell you that. Check the forecast, get a little closer to game time on it. We're going to at the high right now, looking somewhere in around 20. So it's going to be cold. The wind could push the wind chill near 0. So this could be a really cold game. So understand that coming in. So first of all, the Steelers, Mason Rudolph's their quarterback. Well, there's 3 games of film on him now. He's a third string quarterback for a reason. He was not ahead of Mitchell Trubisky in the preseason, early season. They didn't like Mason Rudolph. But then Mason Rudolph came in, got a couple big plays, the running game clicked, and now he's in a playoff game. The film on him is going to be problematic, and the cold temperatures going to be problematic. So a guy that likes to gunsling a little bit, he really didn't last game, but he likes to do that. But that's going to be kind of off the table. But that said, Buffalo, they communicate so well on defense in their zone. And Rudolph tends to stare receivers down. Now they're going to come in wanting to run the ball. So that's a positive. They're going to want to run. And their running game has been very good. The under center running game has been really, really good. All that said, the Bills got Daquan Jones, their defensive tackle, back a couple weeks ago from IR. Huge boost to their run defense. We know Ed Oliver's a stud inside. A little better in the pass rush game, but it's Daquan Jones. That's the linchpin to the run D. That really helps. And I do think with Mason Rudolph at quarterback, I think that the Bills could creatively put extra bodies in the box and they can handle business. At least one extra body. And I think that could hurt that Pittsburgh running game. So I don't think Pittsburgh's going to have a lot of success on offense here. This is not a good team. The Bills are playing well defensively. I am a little worried with Rasul Douglas having hurt a knee and not practice, but if it was another team with a better passing attack, I would be a little more worried. But the Bills should have an answer for any type of passing attack the Steelers have. The other side of the ball, look, there's no TJ Watt. That is a massive, massive loss. The amount of attention that offense have to commit to TJ Watt, that's a real issue, because now you don't have to pay that attention to him. Everybody else, sees a little better attention than they may. So this defense may not be the standouts they often are. Now, Gabe Davis is not playing. Now, look, I hope Gabe Davis is fine. I hope if the Bills win, he can play the next week. And this is not meant to be mean, but I think by Gabe Davis being out, this does Joe Brady, the offensive coordinator, a favor. Like I said, Mike McDaniel, the cold weather, doing him a favor. The favor is this: with no Gabe Davis on the field, he's their downfield guy. I don't want my quarterback throwing downfield against Pittsburgh and in this cold weather. So taking Gabe Davis out and that deep threat out, that kind of condenses the game plan. But I think that's great, because you can attack Pittsburgh with the tight ends, Dalton Kincaid. You can attack them with the slot receiver, Khalil Shakir. They're both in great spots. Now, Stephon Diggs did have 87 yards last week. There's that. But he has not been a consistent performer. Pittsburgh plays a lot of man. They're in around 30-ish% range. They're not at the elite level like Dallas and Cleveland, but they play a lot of man, and they could up that here. Joey Porter could see a lot of Stephon Diggs. Now, can Stephon Diggs beat him? Certainly. But Diggs has not played great in the second half since week 6. He has not been a superstar since week 6. And so I don't know what we're really getting out of him. But that means, like I said, James Cook is in a really good spot here. The offensive line, best offensive line I've seen in the Josh Allen era. And they're good at run blocking. And the way they use James Cook, they'll use him in motion. They'll get him out in receiving game. They'll use him as a running game. I think overall, James Cook does well. It could be either capacity. It could be he can get him as a receiver. He can get him as a runner, but one way or the other, he's in a good spot here. And again, I said earlier, I think Shakir's in a decent spot. Targets are always an issue. We saw Dalton Kincaid get reintegrated the last 2 weeks with targets after his targets had slipped down. I think they realized they need him, and he is a big play in this game. So in this game, and so for the best plays, Josh Allen obviously is always going to have a floor for you. I put him as the best play. When the teams play man, the corners have to turn their backs. Allen can run on that. And with no TJ Watt, I really think there's opportunities for Allen to find different areas to break contain. Not groundbreaking to say Josh Allen's a good fantasy play. Okay, we know that. James Cook, as I said, I think whether it's a runner receiver, I think he gets it done here. And I put Dalton Kincaid as a reasonable play. I think he has a high floor, but don't be surprised if he ends up being the leading receiver in this game. Khalil Shakir. I'll go back to Shakir. Reasonable plays Deontay Johnson. If they're going to throw, it's going to be possession stuff. I called this in the Baltimore game. In the Baltimore game, I said it was raining heavy. If Rudolph connects, it's going to be with the short stuff, and that's going to be Deontay, and it was because of the cold weather. That's going to be kind of the same here. Those routes will be okay. They should be. The Bills are not going to sell out to stop Deontay Johnson routes. So he's a solid floor play. Najee Harris and Jaylen Warren, both very good floor plays. They should get volume. I don't think either of them goes off here. Jaylen Warren, because of the big play potential, has a better chance to do that. Najee Harris getting a little more red zone work, but I don't think they're in the red zone that often. Stephon Diggs is just a reasonable floor play. He should get enough targets to do something, but again, he has not been a strong fantasy play. The wild card plays, look, George Pickens is not a recommended play, but it's that swing for defense. Does he get the catch and run? Do the Bills bring people down to the box, and does he take one on a slant and house it? That's what you're hoping for, but otherwise, I don't expect Pickens to do much, but you're hoping for that. Khalil Shakir is a wild card play because if they decide to attack the slot, very attackable here. And Shakir could have a good game, but we never know what the targets are going to be. So that's the only concern with Shakir. But I love Shakir in this matchup, but they have to choose from a game plan perspective to go to him. I think if you're in a crazy, like that one game captain challenge, Deontay Hardy. Gabe Davis is out. Now, I know he's not the same play. They play completely different roles, but they're going to want speed on the field in this cold game. And then I think we could see a little more Deontay Hardy than usual. It could be a jet sweep. It could be a toss. It could be a slant screen. It could be any type of thing to get him in space and use his speed. Well, Gabe Davis, so I think he's just an extreme wild card. But if you want to save money to spend up on other players, he could be a player to look at. It's very volatile. He may do absolutely nothing, but there is a world where Deontay Hardy gets a big play in this game. Don't be surprised to see that happen. Props in this game. Josh Allen under 29.5 pass ups. He's gone over that barely once in his last 3 games, and I think the running game is going to take center stage here. And the Bills have been a heavier run team in the last 3 weeks, and I don't think he hits that number. Mason Rudolph over 0.5 interceptions. I think the Bills are going to trail. I think the Steelers are going to trail. And I think with the zone and the smart safeties, the veteran safeties that the Bills have, they have 3 of them, Poyer, Hyde, and even Taylor Rapp. I do think they disguise looks enough. And I think Mason Rudolph makes a mistake. George Pickens under 37.5 yards. You're banking on the idea he doesn't house a short catch. Because if he doesn't, I don't see a world where he gets there. And he hasn't housed. It's not like he houses one every week. That's like 3-4 times a year. So probability says he goes under. Jaylen Warren over 18.5 receiving yards. I think that's a very reasonable bet. Josh Allen over 12.5 yards is his longest rush. Remember, the man defense they played, corners turn their backs. That gives extended running lanes. All right, NFC games. Packers, Cowboys. Look, make this real simple. Joe Barry's defense cannot stop the middle of the field. They play very high rate of zone, but the zone in the middle is very weak. Dak Prescott always loves the middle of the field. Dallas has done a great job of weaponizing CeeDee Lamb in the middle of the field. He plays heavy slot. They move him where the mismatch is, but they know that's the mismatch here. Also, Jake Ferguson in the middle of the field. So don't overthink this one. Dallas should crush the middle of the field. On the other side of the ball, Aaron Jones is on the injury report, but he's been on it every last 3 weeks. He's been fine playing full. So I imagine they remove him from the injury report. The key to the Packers is getting Aaron Jones involved early and often in the run game. A.J. Dillon keep missing practice. And again, for Jones, that's a blessing in disguise because when Dillon's on the field, they force him on the field. He's not good, compared to Jones, he's, not a threat to the defense. But Aaron Jones, if he can get that 20 touches, he could keep this game close. He could give the Packers an edge. The Cowboys are going to struggle to stop that run, and they can't sell out to stop him because the Packers do have so many weapons on offense. So that said, he's the key. We'll see what they do with that. Now, Dallas at home, lately maybe not as dominant as they were, but they still play really well at home. Micah Parsons, please line him up over the center in this game for pass. That's the weak spot. The Packers could pass protect well, but man, the center is a weak spot. If they move Parsons, so I'd like to see, I'm going to be interested to see how they use him in rushing the passer. But the whole thing is, as long as Aaron Jones doesn't dominate on the ground, and he's been 120 scrimmage yards in 3 straight games, then if he doesn't, then Dallas will be able to get after Jordan Love. But if Jones gets going, man, it's going to open up play action. It's going to be interesting. All that said, I think Joe Barry's defense is enough of a liability that Dallas is fine on offense. I think this game gets up there in scoring. I have the Dallas win this one 31-23. I could see a world where the Packers win. I definitely can. The line is 7, so I have it as an 8-point game. I'm staying away from that. If we're doing a teaser leg, either way works. Moving Dallas to -1 or moving the Packers up to +13. I think they both work. Now, either one of those would work. I don't have one preference over the other. I think maybe the higher probability would be Dallas just winning as opposed to the extreme blowout. So maybe Dallas -1 is a better bet. I do like Dallas over their at 30.5 team total, but I'm only a half point over that. So I don't think I'm betting that one high confidence. I think that one might be, moved into a same game parlay or something, but I might move that number down. I might move that number down to 27, 26.5. I might just move it there just to give myself a little latitude. If you're playing fantasy, obviously, CD and Dak are the plays. They're the top plays. I think Jaden Reed's a very reasonable play in this one. They get him the ball at least 8 times a game mostly, and he's very effective in that. I think Aaron Jones has real upside here. Let's think of him as a reasonable play for volume, but I think he has amazing potential for upside in this contest. Jake Ferguson's a very reasonable play. He's been getting upwards of 8 targets in recent games, should continue to attack the middle of the field. The wild cards, Jordan Love. I do think it's a running game for them, but if somehow they can control the Dallas pass rush, he could do well, but he's a very, very tricky play. Romeo Doubs and Dontavian Wicks are also wild card plays here because if the Dallas defense plays at a dominant level, they may not get much going. But the one I do like as the reason play is Jaden Reed. Props to consider. Dak Prescott over 279.5 passing yards. I do think he could hit 400. Remember, there's a Packers defense with those vulnerabilities in the middle, and Dallas loves to throw there. CD Lamb over 98.5 yards. He has been crushing lately, and this defense offers little resistance. Jaden Reed over 49.5 yards. I think that volume adds up, and they will get him the ball underneath where he can kind of beat some of the interior for the Dallas defense. So I think his volume gets him over that. All right, Rams-Lions. We all want this one. An amazing game here. So the big thing here is Sam Laporta showed up at practice, didn't practice Thursday, would be stunned if Sam Laporta was able to play in this one. Dr. David Chow used to be with the Chargers, is their medical professional. He's on the internet a lot. He says it'd be a miracle if Laporta played this week. It'd be a minor miracle if he played the following week. So I don't see Laporta being a factor here. The problem here is Sean McVay knows Jared Goff better than anybody, and he knows that Jared Goff loves to throw to the middle of the field. Well, if it's only Amon-Ra St. Brown and there's no Laporta, I think they cloud that middle of the field heavily, which also helps him in run defense. And the Rams are a good run defense. They're not great, but they're a good run defense. And I do think this is not a game where the running backs Gibbs and Montgomery go off. And I think Goff's going to have to win throwing to the outside where he is not comfortable. And so I think that that's going to be enough of a struggle for Goff that the Lions are not going to have a great offensive game. Now, on the other side of the field, in the Lions, I think they're hopeful to get Emmanuel Mosley back. I got to look that one up. And Chauncey Gardner-Johnson, they're supposed to get him back. Look, they can't cover on the outside. Recently, they've just got shredded. And I know it's been by great players, right? It's definitely have done. CD Lamb tore him up at one point. Justin Jefferson tore him up twice. So I get that. That's been recent. And they're giving up 400 yards a game to Nick Mullins. So not good. That said, Jared Goff, Matthew Stafford is in a great spot here. And Cooper Kupp and Puka Nacua, they could line them up outside, inside, doesn't matter. Well, McVay knows where the mismatches are, so he's going to weaponize those. And Kyron Williams is a bad matchup against a great run D, but I'm not sure that that's going to hold here because all season they run duo downhill running, and that's been effective against the defenses that most teams are using to attack running games. That's why he's been effective. It's been Sean McVay seeing beyond. And so I think Kyren Williams doesn't go off, but I think it's enough to keep the pass defense honest. And I don't think they can hang with Kupp and Nacua. So the one caveat for this game, the Rams are horrible on special teams, all facets, horrible on special teams. If the game comes down to special teams, they're losing here. But look, I think the Rams have big mismatch in the passing game for their advantage. I think the Jared Goff narrative of the middle of the field and no Sam Laporta is huge. I think that's going to be a problem. And I think the Rams win this one 31-24. If they play 10 times, look, I would think it's like 6 times for the Rams, 4 for the Lions. So I don't want to oversell this. You could go with the Rams money line and get a nice favorable payout, taking the 3 safer, obviously, I think. The over on the game is fine. My favorite bet, the Rams are 24.5 as a total. You could even move up to 26.5, depending on your sports book for plus odds. But over 24.5, that seems like a very strong bet to me. If you're playing fantasy, Stafford, Kupp, and Nacua. There you have it. Those are your 3 best plays, right? Just roll with that passing game of the Rams against this vulnerable Lions defense. I think I'm on St. Brown's is a reasonable play. I think there's going to be a ton of bodies, I overstated, hyperbole, in the middle of the field. And I think they're going to make it really difficult to get him the ball with no Sam Laporta. I think it's going to be a problem. I think Montgomery and Gibbs are reasonable plays. They have good floors. I don't see either having a ceiling game. Gibbs could break a long run, and that could change the equation. But I think they're floor plays. I think Demarcus Robinson is a floor play. He has been very solid for fantasy the last 6-ish weeks. And look, we know who he is, but we know who Sean McVay is. And Sean McVay has decided, I'm getting you open, and Matthew Stafford's going to find you, and it's worked week after week. So he's a reasonable play. My wild card. You want a boom bust play here? Jameson Williams. Because I expect the Rams to cloud the middle of the field, and they are not good covering perimeter receivers. It's a massive advantage. And before he got hurt in the last game he played 2 weeks ago, he had 8 targets in the prior 2 games. Jameson Williams has real upside. Now, there's downside because he has not been a consistently great player. But if you're looking on that DFS slate, or if you're looking on somebody to get in as a cheap play, love Jameson Williams for the upside. And then Jared Goff is a wild card, because if the Rams, they're a bad pass, and if he gets going on the outside, if Goff gets going on the outside, there's a possibility. I see him as a volatile player, not reliable. But if he gets going on the outside, he could have that game. I expect Sam Laporta is not playing, so he's a wild card. If he's on the field somehow, he's a wild card because we have no idea what his health set is. Props. Matthew Stafford over 274.5 yards. Jameson Williams over 36.5. Won't need much to get there. I'm on St. Brown under 89.5 yards. I just think they're going to put a ton of bodies on him in the middle of the field. Cooper Kupp over 68.5 yards. He hasn't been great, but he still gets strong target volume. And in a big game, in a playoff game, I think Matthew Stafford leans on his veteran. Jahmyr Gibbs under 77.5 rushing receiving yards. Don't bet that one if you're nervous, because he's a big play machine. But this Rams defense is underrated against running backs. So that one, again, be careful on that one. But I do think he goes under that total. I picked rushing receiving yards because he hasn't been big as a receiver, but that inflating that number, because if he take the rushing yard prop and he gets one moderately long run, he goes over. This gives me a little cushion. Last game, Eagles Buccaneers. We don't know what Philadelphia's injury status is. Hurts hurt his middle finger. We know he's been dealing with a knee probably all season. A.J. Brown hurt his knee last week. We don't know if he'll play. If he plays, we don't know what percentage he'll be at. Devontae Smith seems fine back from the ankle injury. He seems like he'll be ready to go. Dallas Goedert's healthy, yay. DeAndre Swift missed last week because of illness, so he's fine to go. On the other side of the ball, Baker Mayfield is really, really banged up. It's ribs. He had an ankle. He has I think there's a shoulder injury going on, and we've seen the last 2 weeks. The Bucs didn't score a point till garbage time against New Orleans. They scored 13 in the fourth quarter when the game was over. They didn't score a touchdown against Carolina. Both of these teams are limping into the playoffs. Here's how I look at it. Philadelphia still has a very good offensive line. Bucs are a good run defense. But I think this is a game where, again, Do I trust Brian Johnson to call a great one? Not necessarily. But I think under the playoff hyper focus, I think they have to protect their quarterback. They're AJ Brown's injury, if he plays or not. I think you got to come in this game with the mindset. We are going to run the football. We're going to use DeAndre Swift as much as we can. And we're going to just grind this one out. And then when you use play action, I think it's a Dallas Goedert game. I think the middle of the field is vulnerable. I think they can get Goedert going. They can also put him on the outside when they need to as well. I think this is a Dallas Goedert game. And I think they keep this down. On the other side of the ball, look, Philly's defense is awful. The spine of the defense, linebackers and safeties in coverage, cornerback Slay and Bradbury not playing at a great level this year. Teams have bracketed Mike Evans lately. That's been the takeaway, and he's had less than 70 yards at 4 of his last 5 games. Despite the Eagles not having players who are doing well right now, I think they bracket him. And I think they could slow him down, and Mayfield's injuries are a problem. I don't think they have a sustaining running game. We saw them get run over the Eagles in recent games, but I think the Eagles have enough to slow Rachaad White and force him to be a little one-dimensional. And I think in that case, Godwin has an advantage. But overall, Baker Mayfield's really beat up and is a big stage game, and I'm nervous. So I'm going to pick the Eagles to win this 19-13, low scoring game. So I'm on the under in this game for sure. Eagles -3. If you're betting the teaser, move the Eagles up to +3, from -3 to +3. I think that's the best one to go with. In terms of playing fantasy, I think Dallas Goedert and DeAndre Swift are the plays. Chris Godwin's borderline. I have him as a reasonable play, but I could see him in that best play category because I do think the bracketing on Mike Evans is going to make Godwin a priority. Jalen Hurts is a reasonable play because as a rusher, he always gets something done, and he's great at the goal line. I think Mike Evans is just a floor play here. Again, I know on paper this looks like a game he would blow up. Playoffs, I think they have to sell out to stop him and make the other guys beat them. Devontae Smith is a reasonable play. He could be an upside play too, but I don't think they're going to throw a lot, and that's why I'm worried about him. And I think the throws might be safer here, but he catches those too. So I see him as a reasonable play. The wild card plays, look, if A.J. Brown plays, he's dangerous, but we don't know the level, so he's a boom-bust play. Rachaad White, for fantasy, he's been great. He could catch passes here. So I see him as a wild card. He could have a big game, but I think they also could slow him down a lot. Cade Otton's whole season has been up and down. Great games, bad games, matchup. He's had great matchups. They don't use him. So he's a wild card, but there is upside. And then Baker Mayfield's a wild card. Because the Eagles defense is so bad, it's possible he gets going. But also he's beat up, and teams have really slowed them down the last 2 weeks. So I'm worried. The props, I like DeAndre Swift over 59.5 rush yards, and I like Chris Godwin over 54.5 yards. I didn't put the Dallas Goedert prop in here, but over on his yardage would be good as well, but that's risky because we never know if they're going to get him the ball. That's a riskier one. All right, everybody, be on Sirius XM Fantasy Sports Channel on Saturday from 1 to 3 Eastern. If you want my free 30-page playoff guide, find me on the X at Jim Coventry NFL. I'm pinned to my profile as a tweet on how to get it. Just like it, retweet it, and I will DM you the information to get that. If you want my playoff rankings for the playoff challenges, if you're going to do one of those and you don't have a RotoWire subscription, get you a free trial, rotowire.com/Jim, no credit card needed. You can check out all of our great playoff content at RotoWire. Tune back to this channel on Monday. I won't be back on the weekend this week since NFL playoffs. Monday, 11 a.m., Anthony Servino and myself will break down all the weekend's actions. Tuesday, we'll definitely be back going through the previews, the early previews of the divisional round. And the Friday show, as always, be props, DFS, and the like. Jeff, appreciate you. Thank you so much. Everybody who's here, thank you for hanging out. Good luck. Again, find me on the X at Jim Coventry NFL. Good luck this weekend. Enjoy the games, and I will see everybody on Monday.